This episode is sponsored by Laila Safaee Consultancy. Call me a mentor, coach, consultant, whatever fits your ideal. I'm not here to promise overnight millions. I'm here to bring real strategy, sharp insight, and grounded support to help you build a brand you're proud of. Success, obviously, but the kind that lasts. Head to lailasafaee.com to find out more. Welcome back to Spilling the Tea with Laila Safaee. In today's episode, I'm joined by the one and only Lucy Blackburne, founder of Lips and Lines, celebrity, aesthetician, and total powerhouse. From rebuilding her life in rehab to running one of the most sought-after aesthetics clinics, Lucy's journey is nothing short of remarkable. We're talking about how she turned rock bottom into the launch pad for her business, her views on the ever-growing and sometimes controversial aesthetics industry, and what it really takes to build a brand in a world that's constantly changing. Lucy gets real about her sobriety, the drive that keeps her going, and how she went from being my neighbour to becoming one of the go-to names in the beauty game. So whether you're sipping tea or something a little stronger, get comfy because this episode is raw, inspiring, and full of gold. Now let's go spill the tea with Lucy Blackburne. Lucy, thank you so much for joining me today in the studio.
Thanks for having me. First pod ever.
I know. I actually feel so fucking honoured that you are joining me. This is your first podcast ever.
Wouldn't do it with anyone else.
Why is that? I'm genuinely intrigued. Obviously, I know you listen to my podcast.
Yeah. So listen to your podcast, and I just love like what you've achieved in a business sense anyway. And I think I will always admire just women in business from a young age. And yeah, I think we got to know each other a little bit. So,
well, well, you know this because you listen to the podcast, but every podcast starts, for those that might be new to this podcast, with us talking about how we actually know each other. So how do we know each other, Lucy?
So I was living in Manchester, and came back to Bournemouth to live. And you were my landlord? Letting agent. So, yeah. And also my next door neighbour.
Although I get so involved, it wouldn't be weird for you to actually think I was your landlord because you didn't actually have any engagement with your landlord. It was me, like your property PA.
So it was about 25. Was I about? No, a little bit older. Maybe about 27. So 5 years ago.
It was just after lockdown?
Yeah, so first lockdown I spent in Manchester. So yeah, in that kind of period.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we were neighbours.
We was.
You're like the girl next door.
Yes.
Professional, yeah. I don't know, we built like a friendship, I think.
Yeah, no, of course. And I think over time as well, like I think, you know, I would always like your stuff on Instagram and things like that. And obviously a few dinners, which has been nice. And yeah.
So nice. I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception of that time in both of our lives, we were sort of going through like a darkish stage. But equally we were on that, like we had that momentum where we were both in the process of building our businesses. And then we were in this incredible development. We were like neighbours. We'd pass, we'd say hello, like we'd follow each other's journeys. I don't know, it's just really nice. It's like...
Yeah, them apartments were insane.
They were insane.
Literally near Sandbanks. Like, I felt like I'd made it.
That was a pretty, like, amazing move for you. Obviously, Manchester's incredible as a city, isn't it? But then to come down to Poole and then be living in that area and that development, it was so exclusive.
Yeah, I loved it. It was good fun.
We'll touch on that later, actually, because Lucy and I have a very interesting story of our time as neighbours. If you're happy to go there, of course.
Of course.
So, Lucy, Lips and Lines, obviously, where are you at now? Before we jump back and go through the history, because I feel the reason you're sat here today is you are one of the most resilient women I have ever met. And I have so much like admiration for you. Like, obviously I've got to know you, and that's why I wanted you here today, because I feel like the listeners, the viewers, like need to hear a snippet of your story, because it really is inspirational. Even right to now, what's going on in your life now. And yeah, I just find you incredibly inspiring, and I think it's important, especially like with all the pressure like young women go through, well, young women and men, do you know what I mean? And like lots of things going on in their lives, like it's important, especially now you're at what I would say the peak of your success with your company. Sometimes like when you're looking on Instagram and stuff, people don't actually see, it's sort of like, I want to say the iceberg effect, you know, where you see all this glitz and glam and amazingness and wonderfulness, and people don't really know what it's taken to get there. And your story's incredible.
Oh, thank you
before
so
we
much.
jump back, I mean, how is business? How's things?
Yeah, business is good. And obviously there has been moments that have been my peak, but I would actually say the peak of my business was maybe a couple of years ago. And actually for me now, I mean, I got married in July.
By the way, wifey looks so good on you. It looks so good on you.
He's amazing. And I honestly thought I would be one of those women that would just never, ever find anyone. Like, I feel like it takes a certain type of man to be with a woman like us,
I hear
you know. So he's amazing. So soft, gentle, kind. He's exactly what I need. And I feel like I'm very appreciative of him as well. So kind of with that perfect mix. So yeah, just work-life balance for me.
Is that your focus at the moment?
100%, 100 million %. And obviously we'll talk more into that, as in what my priorities are now. You know, I think when you are building a business, you get kind of lost, as in like the business is everything. And literally like I was working like 7 days a week. And then, you know, for someone like myself that has had that journey and that struggle with mental health, addiction, things like that, I need to be able to have the space to do that stuff. Like, I need to go to Pilates. I need to go to my meetings. I need to kind of have those days to reset and kind of rest.
Yeah. I think, obviously we'll touch on it, but when you've had some challenges, you don't know any other way other than survival instincts, I think.
Yeah.
And that, I really can relate to that. I think that's why we get on so well.
Yeah.
Because we sort of respect and understand each other's like
Yeah.
journeys. But you do get to a point, don't you, where you're like, right, I just need some me time now. Let's just
And I think
breathe.
for me, like, my priorities have changed, you know. Like, me and my husband, we live together. We've got some chickens. I know. And I love work. And honestly, I've found my purpose within that kind of element. I go to work and I really love what I do. But, you know, it's about having a balance of that all.
And at the moment, you are between London and Sandbank still, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
The way you're talking is like you're semi-retired, but I know you are absolutely not semi-retired.
Do you know what it used to be, though? And I just think it was like, I remember, like, I think it was like I had a period of 21 days in clinics. And at this time I was working Sandbanks, London, Manchester and Kent. And like 21 days, no days off on the road, literally just churning out like, and that is not healthy. And I think where I came from absolutely nothing, for me, and like watching my mum struggle, like that was just not in my kind of life path. Like I was going to make it and I would do anything to make it. And I think, you know, when you get there, it's not what you think it is in your head. That makes sense.
No, I totally get it. It's totally relatable. But this podcast isn't about me. Otherwise, I'd be like, yeah, me too. Me too.
Oh, that's an ADHD thing, though. Because you want the person you're sitting with to understand that you've had that experience too. And I do that a lot, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
We're very, very similar. Let's go back to background. Let's rewind to the beginning. Let's talk about your upbringing. Where are you from?
So from Hertfordshire. Mum's from the East End. Dad's from Liverpool. I mean, that's enough to really explain it, isn't it?
Mum and Dad, were they together?
They were together. Unfortunately, and I think maturity is talking about this, but kind of, you know, and I want to say before, like, I'm totally healed from the way my dad behaved. And equally, me and my mum have got an amazing relationship today. And that's probably the most thing I'm proud of. So, yeah, Dad was extremely abusive. They split up very soon. I don't know, maybe when I was pregnant. My mum was pregnant. And, you know, I think, you know, I didn't know any different at the time. And I also have my brother. He's got a different dad. But my memories are, you know, a lot of fear. And I used to just remember my mum had like one of those recorded voicemails. And every day I would hear the voicemails that were left. They were threatening and abusive. And, you know, any noise I heard, I would hide under the bed. I was scared he was going to kidnap me and all kind of stuff like that. And, you know, I think when you get older, like, it's quite easy to recognise, like, my dad had his own issues and his own stuff to work on. And there might have been substances involved and things like that. But my childhood was and I feel like my mum did their absolute best, you know, like, she was an absolute grafter. Me and my brother never went without. We went on multiple holidays a year, you know, and we went to like a little village school. And I'll touch on this more later, but like growing up, I just always felt a bit different. And I think that was my discovery of actually what my addiction kind of led to.
I hear you. It's, how old were you? Like those furthest back memories of like remembering, like.
I can't exactly pinpoint it, and I think because of the trauma, like, my memories of my childhood are very bitty. I remember being
That's
like,
weird.
yeah.
I feel like it's strange, but our stories are very similar.
Yeah.
So sitting here listening to you,
Yeah.
I'm like remembering being 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I've, as an adult, described to my mum rooms and how they were laid out, like the nets at the windows, what was going on outside the window. And she's like, Laila, how do you remember that? You were 2 years old. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just describing a situation and how I was feeling. It's incredible. Like,
and I think as well, like, I've done a lot of healing and a lot of kind of therapy and things like that. But early memories of like being handed over to the fence to their neighbour because the police were coming around, and like my mum was always in court constantly. But yeah,
it's a lot.
It is a lot.
I don't know about you, but when you look back, I know I certainly wouldn't change a thing. I don't know about you. Obviously, it's not nice.
Yeah.
I'm not like condoning terrible behaviour or.
Yeah.
But do you think that's like been part of your growth and resilience as a human being, like going through those those things?
So I think that basically I had to do a lot of work on myself around like relationships that I have now, like that I've had with men, because that kind of father wound can affect all of that kind of stuff. So there's parts of it, yes, but parts of it, you know, no child should have to go through that, you know.
Completely agree.
So yeah.
Hopefully you got where I was going with that.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I feel like understanding who you are and how you've become this person then gives you a lot of, I know you'll agree with this, but I think you'll agree with this, it gives you so much understanding about our parents. And I mean, I historically have been like angry towards my mum and dad for various things, and then having worked through therapy and looking back, I have an understanding of why they are who they are and just being at peace with that.
And I think for me as well, like the relationship with my mum, like, you know, and I think you hold on to like little things that each parent does or whatever. And it's like when you actually step back and grow up at the picture, like my mum did amazing, but she did the best she could with the cards she was dealt. And also, you know, it's when you think about it, we put so much blame and emphasis on like our parents. But if you actually think about it, it's our first doing, we're doing like life the first time, and so are our parents. Like
100%.
They haven't had like a test run at it. You know, they're going to make mistakes, and yeah.
Yeah. I love this. I love this chat. We're getting deep. We're getting deep. So at what point, like, did you think, so moving on from like childhood, when was like the moment of, right, I want to make money, I want to have a business, like, talk to me about that. Like, how did you?
So my mum obviously was independent, and never relied on a man for anything. So I think that there was like a simmer of that in the background, that like you need to go and get it yourself. Like, you can't rely on a man. And there's nothing as a free lunch, as they say. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that to be able to be self-sufficient is so valuable as a woman, because, you know, trying to find the right words. So being self-sufficient as a woman, you just aren't going to have anyone let you down. So, like, it's from that perspective, but obviously there's a little bit of trauma behind that kind of...
Driving it.
Yeah, of course.
100%. So, walk me through, like, the moment Lips and Lines was born. What were you doing before that?
So, I'm just trying to think. So, yeah, so left home really, really young. Me and my mum's relationship broke down. Did actually go into foster care for a little bit. But, yeah, came out. And I started to use alcohol, substances. And,
like recreationally? Like...
Yeah, of course. And I always used to say, like, oh, that I found myself. But that's not true, you know. I found something that would numb the pain, you know, for me. And that period, definitely, from that point to 25, is a complete blur. I couldn't tell you what I was doing and all sorts. It was just really sad time. And I think we'll just move into it, like, quite briefly as well, because I can recognise it, but there's no point talking about, like, how bad it was or anything like that. But at the end of the day, like, spiritually, mentally, physically, I was absolutely fucked, you know. There was suicide attempts in that period. Jesus. Physical consequences from my addiction. There were emotional consequences. So, like, family members would just be like, absolutely not. I lost friends, family in that period, you know, and it was a really sad time. And I think what I will touch on addiction as well is that, like, what I know today about addiction is not what I knew then about addiction. You know, I was very lucky to go to rehab in that period, and I just thought that I was addicted to a specific substance. And I went to rehab, did a lot of work on myself, and came out. And this is, like, the maddest thing. There was two main things for me when Lips and Lines were founded. I'll talk a little bit about the second one a bit later, but I wrote a 5-year sober letter, and in that letter, it's chilling. I should have actually brought it, but there's all of...
Have you still got it?
Yeah, I've still got it. So that's
Wow.
7... How old? 5, 6, 7 years. 7 years old. And it literally talks out about what kind of person I want to be. And then I literally say, I'm going to open a aesthetic clinic. I'm going to have multiple clinics, people working for me. And yeah. So I went to...
It's giving me shivers.
No, it's crazy. Actually crazy when I think about it.
Out of interest, you writing that, did you call it a sober letter?
Yeah, 5-year sober letter.
5-year sober letter, right? So was that a tool that was given to you when you were at rehab? Or is it something that you thought of and wanted to do and it just sprung to mind?
Yeah, so in rehab, I think I believe rehab's just a place for respite. Some people can get sober on the outside world in the mix of it all. For me, I needed to be taken, removed from society. So
that sounds so extreme, doesn't it?
Yeah, so extreme. But when I say, we say, like, drinking or using against my will, but, like, I wanted to stop. Like, I couldn't stop. And that is a really, really lonely place to be, because when every night you lay your head on the pillow and say, right, I'm not going to do it tomorrow. And then before you know it, you're doing it. And it's just so out of control. Like, so yeah, when I went to rehab, those kind of things and exercises we did were part of the treatment. So we'd do, like, a life story letter to write about our life, and we did a 5-year relapse letter, 5-year sober letter. And yeah, so I basically went to rehab in Bournemouth, and that is where the link is.
Okay. Cue Laila over here that's about to help you find your beautiful apartment.
No, so this was before.
Oh, before.
Yeah, so there was
okay.
two times. But yeah, so this was before.
So rehab in Bournemouth.
So rehab in Bournemouth, and you will know this very well, and left rehab, and I lived in a bedsit above Mo's Barbers on the Triangle. Shared toilet. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And I had a little bit of money that was away to kind of go and do the aesthetic training and all of that stuff. And I kind of just, over that year, like just bumped up. So like then I moved into like a 1-bedroom flat. I started my business and...
So this is where Lips and Lines was born?
Yeah, so just like the little behind bits, yeah.
Out of interest, a bit random, this is on topic. Do you ever, when you come to Sandbanks, drive through Bournemouth past the Triangle?
Yeah, I've been back there.
And just have a look and go,
yeah,
well done.
Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah. It's
giving me chills talking about this.
Yeah, and I think, you know, for me as well, and I think with any business, you know, you have money, you lose it, you have it, you lose it, all of that. But I literally had fuck all then. But when I think back, I was the happiest, one of the happiest times of my life.
During, like, the rehab and
yeah, just coming out of rehab. And, like, even though I was there, you know, I was free from addiction. And I think to wake up every morning and just to kind of be able to get on with your day with not having the thought of to go and change the way you feel is amazing.
How long did it take you to get to that point of feeling that freedom and happiness?
So I was in rehab for 3.5 months.
That's pretty incredible. Some people don't break away from that for years, ever. That's incredible, Lucy.
And I do think as well, like, rehabs are great, but the real work does start when you get on the outside. And part of my story is that I still didn't understand about addiction fully then. Okay. I just believed it was pinpointed on that thing. So I did start drinking again and, you know, and obviously Lips and Lines were born and there was a mass. With addiction, you tend to switch. So, you know, you've got gambling, you've got shopping, you've got food addiction, there's sex and love addiction, and it's quite easy to switch and start using. Because addiction, all it is really is using something to change the way you feel. Mm-hmm. And that can be in so many kind of areas, you know.
So what you mean is you could stop drinking and doing drugs, but then you could go into like love or sex addiction.
Yeah, or like shopping. And with addiction, it's like the mental obsession that is like so painful because you're either thinking about doing it or you're doing it, you know.
I hear you. So Lips and Lines was born from your rehab, your sober letter. Yeah. Talk to me about that.
So I'm very transparent. Like, you know, obviously I kind of manifested it in rehab. So I manifested my business and exactly how that was going to look. And I feel like manifesting isn't just thinking about something, it's putting action in as well. And, you know, I designed my first business logo. Like, I literally done everything myself, you know. And I think I was watching a podcast the other day with Emma Greed, and she spoke about that time, like on Instagram and kind of the social media platforms where there was like that golden era where you could really just scale quite quickly. You could find your target audience in a radius of wherever you like a clinic was, etc. So yeah, I found it just went boom very quickly. And equally, going back then, there wasn't that many people doing it. If they were like average. And I think
I love that. Tell it how it is.
Yeah. Do you know what the thing of it is as well? Like, it's medical artistry. Even if you've got all the medical knowledge in the world, have you got the artistry? Have you got that creative flair? Have you got that artistic skill set? And a lot of people haven't, you know. And then there's also a lot of people that just don't have any medical knowledge that should just not be doing it as well. But
which is where all the bad press comes from, right?
Yeah, of course. But I think as well, like, you know what I'm like. I'm very open. I'm like, I would talk about things. I'm very a relatable person. Like, it isn't just sunshines and rainbows, you know. So I really got to connect with my clientele as well, you know, and connect over social media. Like the early days of it, I think I would share stuff like about the addiction and all of that, you know, because it was, I was just very kind of open, and I managed to grow, quite a good following and stuff in the early days.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
So did you hire a space originally?
So where did I start? Charminster. So yeah, just literally a little room.
And the rest is history.
Literally, rest is history. But the you know, I mentioned there was two things. So the second thing was that, so I was about 3 months sober, and oh God, I got a call from my doctor at the time, and me and my friend had the same doctor, my best friend, and she had been found dead in her apartment. And first he rang and just said like, oh, I need to get a hold of Becky's mum. I don't have her next of kin on here. And honest to God, I did not think anything of it because I'd spoken to her a few days before, you know, and I was planning to go up and visit her. And I think when I got sober, I did really have to like cut a lot of people off and just kind of create this new life. But we spoke, and she one of the last messages she said, she's like, I'm just so proud of you, like getting sober. And I think if I wouldn't have had that conversation, I don't know where I'd be right now. Do you know what I mean? Because I just think that it was just
Do you want a minute?
no, I'm all right. God, I used to never be able to talk about it, but I am getting a lot better now. But do you know what? I should just be so proud of me today. And I think when you're in grief like that and the pain is so hard. I mean, when I got told, I just fell to the floor, like the physical pain. I thought it was a joke, and then trying to navigate that 3 months sober and starting your business. And I think for me, I just had to have that focus, and it just allowed me to kind of like just home in on that kind of business scale without having to deal with the reality of what was happening at that time.
So you like turned the pain into like power
Yeah.
in every sense of.
Yeah.
I just can't even imagine.
I think as well, for a long time, and I've done a lot of healing around this, I think for a long time, because I didn't go and see her that weekend to protect my own sobriety, I carried that for a long time.
Like a feeling of like regret or something?
Well, I just think, oh, well, you know, when you lose anyone, it's like, well, if I would have gone and done that, like, would she still be here? And, you know, and the truth is, like, probably she would still have passed away. But, yeah.
That's horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. But I imagine she is here with you now.
Oh, yeah.
Saying, pull yourself together, you silly cow. You've got this.
Yeah. And do you know what? Like, she was an amazing person. And even to this day, oh, fuck.
All right.
Even to this day, like, I got married. The little touches that we can show respect to someone throughout our life. And, yeah, I went and put my bouquet on her grave after my wedding.
Did you?
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Can we have a makeup break? Can we have a makeup break?
Tissues.
We need tissues, guys. Oh, thanks, George.
Oh, thanks, George.
That's all right, I'll put them down here for you.
I think Laila needs one as well.
Thanks, darling.
So, yeah, moving on.
So you were going through... I mean, you couldn't write it, could you? Building a business, dealing with sobriety, which, you know, was an incredible challenge anyway, and losing one of your best friends.
Yeah.
That is horrendous, Lucy. It is horrendous. So after she passed, you were focusing on the business, channeling all your like energy into it.
And I think, if I'm honest, and I think I've done a lot of work with this, like with we call it sponsor, there was a mass amount of that become a work addiction, you know. I never said no. I'd see clients at all times, you know. And I think as well, when you come from nothing, like I grew up on like an estate and obviously watched my mum struggle. Like it was just like there wasn't another option. Like I was going to fucking get there, and like I did not care what kind of.
Just touching on this, because I know what and people listening are going to feel like what a beautiful soul you are. Like you are a really, really special human. And I think when I look at, you know, you're working with celebrities now, like you're getting over 1 million views on your reels on Instagram, like you know, to get into that world, it's not a sending an email to a managing company and saying, hi, I want to work with this person. I'll give them free aesthetics, right? There's no doubt in my mind that, like you've already said, like how honest you've been about your journey and like being selective about who you're connecting with, like people feel that from you. So like, would you agree like that's probably been as well as the work addiction during this period, but would you say that you being truly authentically yourself along this journey, like has allowed you to create those trusting relationships and like open doors for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think with, you know, Instagram as well, or those social media platforms, like people are only kind of following and engaging because they're not because the business, they want the story behind the business. And I think in the early days of Lips and Lines, I literally shared everything. Literally everything. And I think,
I don't think that's a bad thing, though.
No.
I remember my therapist saying to me once, because similar to you at that part of your journey, I overshared, right?
Yeah.
And I was running a letting agency, similar to aesthetics, right? If you think about it medically, and then you've got estate agents in this professional world. Like there's certain things you probably wouldn't share. And I was really out there. Like I'd be going and getting pissed. I'd be sharing it. I'd be talking to the camera. And my therapist was like, I think you should rein that in and you need to keep business and personal separate. I don't think I was wrong in what I was doing. I'm glad I don't do that anymore. I'm quite selective about what I share. But I do think there's like a line where people have to connect with you and they have 100%. To like, and by doing that at the beginning, you're going to get haters. You're going to get people that love it and they're like, wow, this person's not holding back. And you're like so attracted to it, right? It does work. And then you obviously start to rein it in when you start to appreciate like privacy and stuff. But it's part of like building your personal brand, I think.
100%.
And also, we don't know what we're doing at the time. We're just winging it.
Yeah, literally just winging it. And like that's what kind of everyone says, like, oh, like what, like how did you get there? I'm like, I've got literally no clue. Like all I know is that every day I was relentless and I did not stop at nothing.
Flying by the seat
of
your
pants. There was no business plan. Like there was no wrote out, I'm going to do this. There was like I was like hitting it every day.
So in a nutshell, you then got this work addiction, which I totally relate to.
Yeah.
And also it does give you a buzz one could describe as like taking drugs, really.
100%.
It's the same thing. You'll know the correct terminology for this. But yeah.
And I think that's the time, like, you know, when, you know, like, I always had like this dream from when I was younger, like what car I wanted to get and private number plate. And like, there was always so much focus, or like, when I get the house, when I get the car, when I get this, I will be happy, I will be fulfilled, I will be complete. And let me tell you, getting that car and driving down the road, I literally never forget it. I was driving along and I thought, oh, fuck, is this it?
I know that feeling.
What's next then? What's next? And I think having that journey, or them moments, you know, when I was living above the barbershop in a bedsit and being so happy and fulfilled, you know, and my like mental peace was calm.
Because you'd accomplished and like, found sobriety.
Yeah. And I just think as well, like, I just felt so stupid that I'd placed things on happiness when actually the real happiness is in there.
But you find that along the journey, don't you?
Yeah.
Everything you're saying is so relatable. I remember those moments where I'd be like, before my first pair of Louboutins, right? And I used to think, if I had a dressing room, I mean, at one point I had 3 walk-in dressing rooms when we were neighbours. That's absolutely ludicrous. That is mental. Was I happy? Absolutely not. But like you say, that, you know, on the way up, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think it's a bad thing, though. I feel like you do need something to, like, motivate you.
Yeah, of course.
From those times, don't you think?
And do you know what? I just feel like it's about the journey, isn't it? Like,
100%.
you know, life's purpose, like, you've got to discover that on your own, and it's going to be up, down, you know. And for me, realising that, I just think that's invaluable now to have learned that.
I'm just thinking, imagine when we were neighbours, if we, like, had a little drink at one of our apartments and I sat there and said, Lucy, in a few years' time, you're going to be married and have chickens and cats. What would you say?
God, do you know what, though? I just feel like where my life has changed and flipped so quickly, and in a positive way or negative way, you know, like when obviously I relapsed, you know, it was literally back down at the bottom. You know, like, I honestly, anything can happen in the space of a month, 3 months, a day, you know. And that's why you've got to enjoy your days while you've got them, because you never know what tomorrow brings.
No, you don't. You really don't.
But yeah, so to top of like kind of work addiction, I mean like success, if you want to call it success in like a business financial way, was at top peak, I would say then. And
you just blew up.
Yeah, and I think when I got to where I wanted to be within business, that no longer was my work addiction. And without me even knowing it, boom, came the relapse.
So you relapsed again after the peak?
So there wasn't anything above that. You know, like, I just felt like I'd got to where I'd got in business, and you take your foot off the gas of something and then bang, came the relapse. And it wasn't, it took a little bit of time. It was a slow burning relapse. And in that period was the incident.
Yeah. How did you manage running your business? Bear in mind, it's just blown up. You're at your peak. There's a lot of pressure. And I know, you know, what it's like. How to have that added pressure of relapsing, like, how did you get through that and manage to keep the business?
So it was kind of like a blip, and then I kind of started to try to kind of navigate. But the thing I didn't want to give up was drinking.
Okay.
So there was a few little meetings and things like that, and then with anything, it just spirals. Once a month turns into every week, and then, you know.
Did the business halt at any point while this was spiralling?
Yeah, but a little bit later.
Yeah. Well, you're here to tell the story, honey, and it ends positively, guys.
The thing with it as well is, like, you know, that because I'm like a working founder, so like I actually go in and do treatments and stuff. So I've got like my clinic day times where I'm working, but then also after work that there's like kind of business stuff. So the clinics kind of at the beginning were still running as normal, but then kind of further down the line there was me not turning up for work or being late, and that was to do with panic attacks that we will talk about. But
yeah.
And it's really difficult to understand, and even to this day there was other stuff that I was dealing with, and my addiction, and trying to separate those were impossible. So yeah.
So during this time is when we were neighbours, right?
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully everyone's up to speed. We've got real deep here today, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful that you've been like brave enough to share like this, like these chapters.
Spilling the tea, babe.
Spilling the tea. So intercept me here. This isn't our story. So Lucy and I were neighbours. Weirdly, I was her like agent as well, but we were neighbours. And we were both on the ground floor of this incredible building. Mm-hmm. Each apartment is very unique, very individual, but we're both on the ground floor. We're the only ones on the, well, We're 2 of 3 on the ground
Yeah.
floor.
So like our outside area is kind of, you would come past my outside area from the road and then round the back to yours.
Yeah. So Lucy and I both on the ground floor. Just to give you a visual here. So one night, I can't remember for the life of me when it was. Can you? I just can't.
So it was November.
Going into winter.
So yeah, I got sober in the July after.
Okay.
So it's coming up. Yeah. So yeah, a couple of.
Yeah. So you were. So this was a bit of a spiral time for you.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us building our companies.
Yeah.
Wild. We're next door. Like literally,
Yeah.
you step out of my door, Lucy's door's there.
And for me then, like the addiction was there, but it wasn't like a daily thing at that point. It had just kind of started every so often coming into play.
Just to put this in perspective, not drugs, but I was doing the same thing, Lucy. I was running my business. I'd finish work. I was single, like figuring out this entrepreneurial journey and like the spiral that I was on. And I'd be drinking every day. So I was probably drinking more than you.
And I think this is the reason I've wanted to come on the pod because, you know, someone that knows me and doesn't know my story and like has obviously seen me succeed in business, addiction doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think growing up, I always thought an addict was like a homeless person on the end of the road on the street, you know. Addiction doesn't care who it hits. You're either an addict or you're not, you know, and it doesn't matter. And I think the difference, because obviously you can kind of openly talk about like your drinking, is that you say the word drugs and there's such a big shame around it. But it's like,
But
why?
drink is just as bad.
Drink is a drug.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
Thanks for highlighting that, because
No.
I think I even said I wasn't doing drugs, but I was
Yeah.
drinking. Well, actually, yeah, I was drinking.
But
That's
it's
a drug.
crazy, really, isn't it, when you think about it? And when I was in rehab, watching the alcoholics wean off was scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to our story.
Yeah.
We're neighbours. For a visual here, do you remember my apartment? It had a 500 square foot hallway, guys, like a gallery, right? So picture this. I actually, for one night, I think I was in bed at a reasonable time.
Yeah.
Had my bedroom door. So my bedroom's right at the other end of the apartment.
Yeah.
Doors open straight into the hallway. And at the end of the hallway is my front door. God, what time was it, Luce?
So just rewind a bit, though, for that. So that night was that...
Everyone's in anticipation.
No,
We're
I know,
describing
but I'm very intuitive, and I just felt like something was off that whole night. So from literally 7 o'clock, the energy was weird. I could just feel that I felt like I was being watched, and that's the only way I can describe it. So that went on for hours, and I text you first saying, "Hi, hun, are you up?" Because I'd already started hearing things outside at this point, but I just thought, oh, maybe you got your drunk friends over and they're walking over my like back bit to get to yours, like. So yeah.
Which would be a common occurrence, right?
100%.
Friends sneaking around the
And-
backs. But so you're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and also like that area as well. Well, now I know it happens quite often in around Sandbanks area, but like at the time it was really unheard of. So I generally thought I was going crazy.
Had you had a drink that night?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'd had a drink that night. So you're in your apartment. I'm in mine snoozing. Miss your text message. I don't see it.
No.
So the first time alerted of anything is my doorbell goes. Was it midnight?
Yeah, I think it was about 1 o'clock at this point.
1 a.m. So the doorbell goes, but not like once. There was a frantically, you were frantically ringing my doorbell,
Yeah.
which echoed down the hallway. I like jumped out my skin and I was like, holy shit, who is at my door? Looked at the time and thought it's the middle of the night. Obviously came creeping down the hall thinking, what the fuck is going to be at the other side of this door? Look through the peephole and you were like, I'm not I'm laughing out of like awkward nerves here right now. You were like, you looked petrified.
Yeah.
So immediately I like opened the door, shut it behind you, locked it, and you were in a
State.
fucking mess.
the thing is, like, when I think back to that as well, like, because it was over time and, you know, you think you're going a little bit crazy and, you know, I should have called the police hours before when I heard the noises. You just think, like, I just was trying to rationalise the things I was hearing. And I think when I got into bed, and so just to put in perspective, like, we've kind of got floor to ceiling glass, like, sliding doors on bedrooms and our, like, lounges. And I turned all the lights off and muted the TV. And, like, light of day, I heard someone whisper by my sliding door on my bedroom. And I froze, as you would. But, like, I had to know that they were, like, because it went on for so long, I just thought I was literally going nuts, you know. And I literally turned the lights off, and I then could see one that was, like, hiding on the corner of your plot and my corner. And I just froze, and then they shone a light through the glass. And that is when you didn't actually know I had 3 cats, did you? When I took out the tenancy. That's the funny bit of the story. I came with the 2 cats and...
Oh, the cats! Oh, of course. How can I forget the cats?
And I couldn't find my other cat. And then we'd gone into your apartment and we were looking back at them, still trying to get in.
Well, I was a bit confused. Obviously, I'd just woken up. You'd been awake for hours, right? And I remember you being not drunk. You weren't, like, drunk and not making sense. You made total sense, but you were panicking and you went, Laila, someone's trying to break into our apartment. And I just remember thinking, is Luce just off her nut?
Yeah, of course.
And I just took a deep breath and I thought, even if she is off her nut, she's not a happy girl right now. Like, we need to be together. Like, you're clearly fucking panicking.
Yeah.
And I think I said, you literally, you were struggling to string a sentence, not because you were drunk, but because you were so scared.
Yeah.
And I was, like, taking you seriously because I would obviously highly respect you. But part of me doubted whether that could have been something you were imagining. So I walked into my dressing room, looked through the blind, and was like, fucking hell. Yeah. 2 ballied guys, like, literally, don't know what they were doing, but I just remember looking, and it was dark because we turned all the lights off in the flat, hadn't we? And this all happened very quickly. We're telling the story quite slowly. Yeah. This was all, like, rapido, wasn't it? And I remember seeing them and thinking, holy shit. Yeah. And then when you were explaining what you were going through, I was like, holy shit, this is real. Like, this is fucking real. Like, what do we do? Like, what do we do?
And I think it's the adrenaline, isn't it? And I think, you know, when I got to yours, there was so much that had already happened to that point for me to, like, when I actually got confirmation and I literally saw them, because hearing noises, there could be anything, you know. But when I actually saw them, I think, you know, and you've got the adrenaline going, and I went back to get my other cat.
Yeah, you did. At that
you
point,
were like, no. And I was like, I'm getting my other cat. Yeah, and ran back in.
That's lovely.
And then the police got there very quick, though.
So that's what happened. I feel like my protective, because I'm actually a fucking pussy, by the way. I'm terrified of the night for my own trauma, right? I'm terrified, but I felt so, like, protective of you and the fear, like, so something kicked into me, and, like, even though I was shitting myself, I was like, I have to, like, look after Lucy. Yeah. So I was like, don't worry, I've got this. And I started calling the police, and I was like, we're 2 single girls in a flat and there's 2 men trying to break in. And I don't remember exactly, but I was like, took control of that situation. In the meanwhile, you run off to get your 3rd cat.
Literally. And we literally can laugh about this now.
But of course. But it was fucking awful. It was awful.
100%. And I think, you know, that ultimately left. And I think that led to me kind of having to move out of that property, which was a really big decision to do because I was super settled, but also...
And it was beautiful, right?
Yeah, it was
what a beautiful place to live.
I was really sad, but the reality of the situation afterwards is that I could not sleep. Like, I couldn't sleep.
And this didn't help the spiral, right?
No. And then I moved, obviously, properties, and in that period was just when it just went, because I was dealing with PTSD, and then I was dealing with the addiction. And I think that was something, and we'll talk about that later, but when I actually came out of rehab the second time, the PTSD was still there for a long time.
And when was that, Lucy? How long have you been sober now?
So
Let's end this on a high.
Yeah, coming up to 3 years. Coming up to 3 years.
I'm so
Yeah.
proud of you.
Yeah.
Do you feel proud of yourself?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I just think that, you know, like that incident, there was much more stuff that started to happen, like, you know, and I'll be open about this, but I think when you then start to have a mental breakdown, I started hallucinating in the apartment that I moved into because the PTSD. Any slight noise I would hear, any slight shadow, I would believe that I was literally going to die. And I think in that instance, you know, why did that happen? Were they breaking in to get the cars? Were they going to rape me? Were they going to come and kill me? Like, I know they sound irrational, but like,
No.
they knew I was in that apartment, and that's something that I couldn't get my head around. It wasn't just a robbery of like stuff, because that doesn't really happen.
No. We're just really lucky.
Yeah,
the
no,
police
of course.
actually, for once in their lives, were speedy. They took it seriously.
Yeah.
And their presence actually deterred whatever these guys were up to.
And I think the sad thing of it all is like, you know, after I did move out of there, that at the kind of new property, you know, I mean, that was just nuts. Who would move in? That was all glass again. You know,
Or off the ground, though.
Off the ground, but all glass, had no curtains. And the reality of that was for me that the police got called multiple times of me hallucinating, you know, and I'll be very transparent of that. And that's when the breakdown of kind of the business had, you know, I couldn't go into clinic and carry out non-surgical procedures, and I haven't slept in a week. And yes, there was a little bit of drugs involved then, but mainly it was the PTSD, which is really sad.
It's
and
awful.
I remember calling the police one night, and he was like, there's literally no one outside. And I think that was the realisation I had, because everything just felt so real. That was the realisation when I just thought, I'm going crazy. I've lost the plot. I need help.
And then you went back to rehab.
Yeah.
Was that in Bournemouth or did you go elsewhere?
So I made like a last-ditch attempt to try and sort myself out. Moved house back up to London in Chigwell. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse place. I mean, I moved
Why?
in there. Well, go to like insure my car, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, we don't insure your car around here." I'm like, "Oh, why?" "Oh, because the robberies." And then that was just trigger. Like everything was just triggering me. And
Did you
yeah.
get the car insured?
Yeah, somehow, but I can't remember. But from there, I went into treatment, and that house was packed up, all my belongings, and I came out of treatment to my mum's house.
Did you?
I wasn't able to live on my own.
How long did it take you to get Lucy back?
So robbery was in November. I went into rehab on the 15th of July. And I was doing the bare minimum at work in that period. Literally, just like enough to tick over, pay the overheads, you know, like I literally was not, I really had
wasn't
to
your focus.
scale back, you know.
So what was the pivotal moment of change where you were like, not going to lose your business, get back on track?
I think it literally is just rock bottom, isn't it? Like mentally exhausted, just spiritually dead. Like I couldn't. I rang my auntie. She's not actually my auntie, but I call her Auntie Debs, and I said, "Can I come and stay with you for a few days?" And went and stayed there and took my cats. And she saw how like fucked I was. And at this point, again, then couldn't stop.
Right.
Couldn't stop. So her son, who I've known since I was at school, he took my car off me, and he'd offered to pay for my treatment. Because at this point, I'd literally...
What an incredible human.
Oh, yeah. Incredible.
You are very blessed
No,
to have people like that.
And that is the thing, and I think I'll never take that for granted. I've been very fortunate with that. I've been fortunate to be able to access that real help that I needed to get myself well. But yeah, so went in. It was a very quick stint. I just needed a couple of weeks just to kind of get... But leaving there and going back to live with my mum afterwards, and the real work starts when you get out. You know, you get a sponsor, you start going to the meetings, you surround yourself with kind of that kind of stability and support network. But I then went to live at my brother's. He was in like a gated community. He'd kind of gone away working, and it was maybe like a year or two. And I remember I slept with the window open and woke up and realised, and that made me think, oh, wow, like I'm healing on that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So obviously your life just turned around from that point with a lot of hard work and commitment. And this is exactly what I was saying about your resilience. It's honestly inspiring. But what was it from that moment? Like, Lucy now, she's married, got chickens, business is thriving. You've got an incredible marketing team now that you are behind you as well. Like,
I think for me now as well, it's just like, and we kind of spoke about this right at the beginning, it's like now I've found my happiness, and my happiness isn't 7-day week work for Lucy. My happiness is to do 3 days a week, and literally since the day I got out of treatment 3 years ago, I've done 3 days a week and stuck to that.
So that was a conscious decision when you came out of rehab. 7 days isn't for me. I'm going to do 3 and have Lucy time.
Yeah.
And that's been part of like you thriving.
I think as well, like there's a saying in recovery, like we say, anything that you put before your recovery and your sobriety that you will lose. And that is just so true. For me, I needed that experience. And I think me going into rehab this time and like what I believed in addiction the first time is like, I know now, and this is how we explain it. So if anyone knows anyone that's suffering, I believe that I've got the disease of addiction that I was born with. It didn't happen because of childhood trauma. Because if you leave it up to that, then it's like, oh, and we spoke about this the other night, oh, what, now I've done my healing on that childhood trauma, am I not an addict anymore? So for me to know that I'm just born that way, like having asthma or eczema or anything like a disease that you have, that I just have to be sober now and total abstinence.
And you're okay with that?
Absolutely fine.
That's amazing.
Yeah. My life sober is a dream. A dream.
I'm so happy for you, honestly.
And when I'm having a really shit day or a shit week, all I do is just bring it back to that moment. Well, today, Luce, you got up and you're free from addiction.
Bravo.
Yeah. That's a priority for me.
I'm so honoured that you felt comfortable enough to like share like all of this with me. Would you be kind enough, like after our conversation, to just share like any helpful links for anyone that like
of course.
you know, suffering with addiction?
There's obviously a lot of kind of rehab centres that are available, obviously paid. I mean, you're unlucky with the way our government is at the moment, but all of the kind of meetings, they are free.
Well, even if we'll sort it out
Yeah,
after our chat, but like I'll get a little summary together because I just feel like that could be really beneficial because everyone, like you touched on, people look at addiction and
and there's even
a lot of people in denial.
No, of course. Like there's no part of my journey that I was in denial. I fully know the extent of the shit I was in with it. But also there is a help available for, you know, like families that are watching someone go through addiction. Because I think this is the thing with addiction. People look at it, it's like, well, you're choosing that over me. Like, I've gave you the ultimatum of not... Like, I've met women that have been told, like, if you do not stop, you're going to lose your children. And they didn't have... You have to be the one that wants the change, and you have to be the one that gets there on rock bottom on your own terms. Not your mum saying, oh, I'm putting you into rehab. It has to be your choice.
And it has been your choice every single time.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, love.
You're welcome.
Just before we wrap up, I'd really just like to touch on your business.
Yeah.
Because your journey is absolutely incredible. It's very inspiring. You are so resilient. you've built an incredible business despite all of the things we've just spoken about, all the challenges. You've built an incredible brand. You should be so proud of yourself. It's amazing. You're obviously trusted by some really well-known celebrities. I mean, that's what every girl dreams of when they set up a company. Like that, you want to get to the peak of your game. And I know you said it's not quite the peak anymore. I personally would describe it as the peak because I'm watching as an observer from the outside. Right? So what's it like navigating like this level of business, celebrity world?
So I think I scaled my business. And I think a lot of people with micro-influencers. So, you know, like the girls that are like local around your clinic that have got that kind of 10, 20,000, they were the ones that I used to scale my business. And then when the business grew, it kind of just all happened by accident. I'm trying to think who my first ever like well-known person was. Oh God, I'm probably going to forget and then say the wrong person. But probably like Danny, like the Towie people, did a few of those. And then Gabby.
Yeah, so more recently, Love Island winner. She won, didn't she,
she
Gabby?
She won.
She's beautiful. I did actually think she looked incredible on that show.
So I did, and this is all like kind of organic. So I did Gabby's friend Jaylee, who's a DJ, absolutely amazing as well, very talented, and she was Gabby's friend. So it was a recommendation that Gabby came to the clinic.
Amazing.
And that was years ago. I've done Gabby for pre-getting sober and everything, so for years.
So you've done her for years.
Yeah.
And then you just so happened to do all her top-ups before she went on Love Island and won.
I know. And that is so mad as well because obviously Gab's turned into a friend and I don't know, like I was like, oh, we didn't really post anything. You know, I'd post the odd thing like, oh, well done, or like, but like actually about her work because I didn't really want people to think that I was like, do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Trying to
So yeah, and it was just one
it.
day I was like, oh God, I need to make something. So I just like, I made that reel myself, literally like just whizzed all the clips together, did a quick voiceover, one take, popped it up and yeah, it went viral. My first ever like huge viral, over 1 million views.
It was such a good video. I remember seeing it and thinking, I need to pick Lucy's brains because was this strategic? Did she know Gabby was going to win?
No.
Like,
I had
what?
no clue.
Because I don't know how that works.
Yeah, no clue. And I sent to her mum. Her mum's amazing as well. And these have turned into friends. I mean, Gabby came to my wedding and absolutely adore her.
Amazing.
But, yeah.
But how is it? So what is it like if you look back on everything we've just discussed and now you look at the people you're working with, life as it is now, like...
God, it's been one hell ride. One hell of a ride.
Keeps it spicy, honey.
Yeah, like, God, I pinch myself every day. I really do. It's been a lot.
Other than your sobriety journey, is there any other surreal stick-out moments just with it?
I think there's been stick-out moments, like, in my life, as in, like, the healing kind of journey and things like that, and, like, sobriety and relapse and things. But I would say in business I was a judge recently at the Aesthetic Championships.
Yes, you were.
Yes, and all of the other judges were, like, my inspo when I started. And to be, like, standing next to them was like, oh, wow.
I've made it.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
No better feeling. That was in the last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it this year?
Yeah, this year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So that was like...
Because, I mean, I've trained with all of them, like, because, you know, every bit of money that I got when I was building, I was just doing more and more training. I wanted to be top tier.
We did touch on this the other night, but I found it incredible, like, touching actually on industry because this was something we went into in depth, but let's just sprinkle on it because you've got some really, like, valid points that I feel people need to hear. We're talking about how, you know, about doctors, people being medically trained versus, because there's new legislation coming out. I think that's how our conversation started.
Yeah.
And I said to you, how is that going to affect your business? Because there's going to be new legislation, which means people that aren't essentially doctors can't be giving Botox, for example.
So all that has changed, and it is very minute, is that because obviously you've got your doctors, you've got your dentists, you've got your nurses, your nurse prescribers. So they're kind of like under a body. So you've got the NMC for the nurses, the GMC likewise. So all that has changed is that the NMC have banned remote prescribing. So when you could, obviously, if you weren't a prescriber, you could do a video call and that prescriber would prescribe for your patient.
Okay.
That's all that's changed. There is a lot more that needs to change. And I think it's quite scary, the industry. Anyone half decent wants the legislation to happen. I mean, that's not even touching on the sides, because realistically, all that's doing is kind of, and my take of it, you're penalising the people that are doing things properly, that are seeing the prescribers through video consultations. That isn't capturing the people that have got literally hardly any qualifications that are buying dodgy products and stuff.
Because that's where it all goes downhill, isn't it?
100%, you know, and I think if I could change anything, what I would see is like my
Have you looked at my cue cards?
No.
I'm joking.
Oh, yeah.
I'm joking.
No, sorry. But what I would change would just be like, just bring out a degree for aesthetic medicine, like straight degree. People can do from their A levels straight into, like you would go your 3 years, your nursing, or do your to train to be a doctor or a dentist. Just have that pathway. Because the problem's the training academies when you think about it. Because when I trained like 7-8 years ago, it was so different.
What fascinated me was it fillers? Correct me. Is it fillers that you started with, but then you worked your way around?
Yeah, so like when I first trained, we learned lips and maybe like the nasofolds, and that was it for 6 months. I would go and perfect that. And then when I felt confident on that area, I would go on and learn facial contouring, you know.
Yeah.
And then the last ones are like your non-surgical rhinoplasty and your tear trough that are a little bit more complex.
We spoke about this. There's like courses where you can go along for like 2 hours and learn how to like inject people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But then your course, the courses that you put yourself through, wasn't quite like that, was it?
It wasn't quite like that at all. And I think, but I invested a lot. I mean, when I think how much I've paid on a training course, I recently trained with Lindsay Owens, who is top tier. She is like the only one that does cleft lips with filler.
I saw this.
Yeah. So that was amazing. Like, that isn't cheap, you know. So constantly investing in myself, I think.
Is that just because you love it? Is that...
I just feel like it's good to kind of pick, you know, like when you can get a little bit stagnant. I think as well, I've been in the business quite a long time. You can get a bit stagnant with it. So I always like to challenge myself and learn something new. And I think the last couple of years, it's really changed where, you know, we are looking at those biostimulating treatments. We're looking at kind of how to kind of stop the clot, but with your own collagen elastin. So, you know, they're like things like your polynucleotides, your microneedling, your Profilo, your medical grade skincare. And I think that is a huge emphasis now, whereas years before it used to be like the Kim K package where you used to get cheeks, jawline and chin, you know, just filled out. So it's nice to see.
Obsessed with skin.
Oh, obsessed with skin. Like, that has been a huge, like, change in me and the way I do my consultations now.
On that note, I caught up with Lucy recently, and I hadn't come to you for any aesthetic work before.
No.
Not for any particular reason, but I'm quite a loyal person, and I think I'd been with the same person, a doctor, like doing Botox and what have you. And just for a bit of like context, so I was like 5 stone heavier, 4 or 5 stone heavier, and like 3 years ago I had chin filler. Obviously, I don't think people are educated either about how filler doesn't like necessarily dissolve, it moves. So fast forward, I've lost like 4 stone. The chin was still there, right? But I hadn't like processed the fact that obviously filling a chin with filler when you're bigger and then losing weight, your chin's going to look like a witch, right? And I remember...
And it was quite hangy, wasn't it? Sorry.
Oh my God. No, but I knew something was wrong with my face.
Yeah.
No one was saying anything. And it was a short period, but I was like, something's not right. And I came to you And I was like, Luce, like, something's not right with my face. Like, what do you think? And what did you say to me?
I was like, it needs to go. I'm so straight talking, but for kind of people like you that just need to be told the truth, but equally people that come in that want stuff, and I'm like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. Go somewhere else.
That's what I loved about you. You didn't do it in an aggressive way. I know
No.
the way we're talking now
Yeah.
sounds really aggressive, but I was like, what is wrong with my face? Like, something doesn't feel right. And you
Yeah.
were like, with zero disrespect to the practitioner that
Yeah.
saw you, like, you were bigger. Like, this needs to go. Your
Yeah.
chin filler needs to be dissolved. Here's my dissolved chin, thanks to Lucy. I'm going to have to show a picture now of the big witch
Yeah, no,
chin,
you're
aren't
going to
I?
have to get it on there.
But I love that you're, like, so honest and you just...
Do you know what? I think like it started as more just my ethics and morals as a person. And then I think that kind of in the early days would always just say no. And I think actually in the long game, that has actually gave me the reputation where people say, oh no, go to her. Like she will not rip you off. Like she'll say like if you need it or not. So I think that's actually built my reputation in the long run, even though like subconsciously I wasn't like doing it like that at the time to get there. But
I think that's really important.
yeah.
That's what carries a lot of businesses though, like people that actually stick to their morals and ethics and
100%.
values. And that is why you are the best, honey.
Oh, thanks.
So what's next for you and Lips and Lines?
So, really, like I was just mentioning, like the skin emphasis. So, I brought on a skin specialist a couple of years ago, Sarah, and I think that is one thing that we've not kind of touched on this podcast. The people that I've had around me in those times are probably the reason that I'm still standing. Like when the relapse happened, the doctor that I work with was absolutely, I'll forever be in debt with him. They gave me that space away from my business and just kept everything above board for me while I had the space to go and get myself sober. And equally the people that I work with, and we touched on it earlier about not mixing business and pleasure. Like F that. I'm friends with people that work with me, for me, whatever you want to call it. We've spent the whole weekend like with all our partners.
That's so nice.
I
Got
need
family.
100%. Like I need to trust the person that I'm working with 100%. You know.
That's a whole nother episode, honey. We'll leave that one for another time. So just to wrap up, I'm so grateful for your time. I feel like I said that a lot, but that's because I really mean it from my heart. That's an ADHD thing. We just repeat ourselves. What advice would you give to someone who does feel stuck or at rock bottom, especially if they like dream of building something big one day?
So I think for me, there was always that moment of hope. I still clung on to that moment that I would get sober back in those early, really dark days. And forget anything else. All you need to do is get yourself sober and the rest will happen. They promise you a life beyond your wildest dreams, but only if you get sober. So I would just make that your main focus and the rest will just happen for you.
Thank you, my darling.
You're welcome.
I'm so grateful. Give me a hug. That's been emotional.
Hasn't it?
It's a wrap.
Wait, are we allowed to take the headphones off
Yeah.
now? Okay. Oh, loved it. Oh,
Love you.
love you too.